Take it away, Greg.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our Conversations with Data webinar. This is our 100th webinar here at Insights Now, which is a lot of fun. And love to have all of you here with us. Thank you very much for joining us. Certainly always a joy to be able to speak with John and Anupam. This is going to be a good session today. We're going to be talking about how AI agents are rewriting some of the rules that we have been using in innovation and behavioral design. All right, so as we go through this webinar, uh, we have a opportunity for you to engage with us. There is a chat button at the bottom. There is a QA button at the bottom, so certainly do that. And as we kick it off here, I'm going to allow each of the people on the team here to introduce themselves. And Anupam, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Greg, and welcome everyone. Pleasure to be here with some industry luminaries here. Happy to be part of that. My name is Anupam Singh. I'm the president and co-founder of 113 Industries. We are a research company, small company based in Pittsburgh. You can see some of the skyline behind a AI-generated background, by the way. I have an engineering background. I have been building software and hardware products all my life. Company 113 Industries, we started more than a decade ago. And we specialize in understanding consumer behaviors, especially in the unstructured, raw, organic, text-based kind of world, text, images, video kind of world. I also guest lecture on AI and text analytics at Carnegie Mellon and at UC Berkeley, more applied on the healthcare side at Berkeley. But so I'm happy to be here participating in this very, very germane topic. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I love having all the conversations. We can talk forever, certainly every time we get together, but brilliant. Thank you. And then John.
Yeah, well, I'm John Ennis. I'm the president and founder of Aigora. So my background is in math. I have a PhD in math. I did my postdoc in AI in computational neuroscience. And then I went into market research consulting to work for my father's company, Institute for Perception, for about a decade. Actually, my first real job was when I was 17 writing Fortran code for him. So I've been in the field for quite a while. I grew up in the field. I, along the way, took a little detour after founding Aigora to run a tech startup. And so I was doing an AI Web3 startup for about 3 years. And then earlier this year, I came back to Aigora when Danielle had to step down as president of Aigora for kind of personal reasons. And I've been back now for about 6 or 7 months. I'm really happy to be back in sensory. I feel like I've come home again. And yeah, and I think agents are an extremely important topic. And I think AI in general stands to make sensory and consumer science more important than ever. So happy to talk about it.
Yeah,
Super.
and John, I always love having you say, probably the one person I speak with where every time I hang up the phone, I'm like, everybody be quiet. I got to write notes. It's always good to have you. All right, and Dave.
Yeah, sure. Dave Lundahl, for those of you who may not know me, I'm CEO and the founder of Insights Now. One of the things that I have really enjoyed and I'm looking forward to this conversation today is that, I started working with Anupam and his other partner, co-founder, is Razim, and he and those two have been in the industry and such a pleasure to work with. Behavioral science being part of the core, but they're tech people, and they're really been pushing the forefront in really understanding how to model unstructured data in a way that fits with our behavioral framework. So it's very, very close partnership, and we've been working together for some time. So really excited about that. And John, welcome back to the industry. I mean, it's I've known the pedigree that you come from, going back to your dad and all the years I've had a chance to work with Danny, and then to see you come back with all your experience and this renewed sort of, you are a leader in the field in when it comes to agentic AI, and so to have you and this conversation is very exciting, and so we have just done a press release. It went out just today regarding partnership between our three companies to develop a very exciting thing called the Insights Hub. So this part of what this is about is to kind of inform, but more importantly, just talk about the opportunities right now, which I'm really excited about, because this is creating new opportunities to really change the game in insights, change the game in innovation. So anyways, that's my 2 bits. Very excited to be here today with this esteemed group.
Excellent. All right. So mentioned this before, but as we go through, please do not hesitate to drop information into the chat, into the QA. I've got that up on the side. If we can answer those live, we will. Otherwise, we'll be answering any questions we don't catch live at the end. All right. So as we go through the day, we're gonna flow the following way. So we're gonna have a quick poll, get information going for people. And then after that, Dave's going to give us a nice little synopsis of this space to get our heads around it. And then we'll have a really good, fruitful discussion. All right.
Great.
So you gonna launch the poll, or you want me to there?
Oh, I guess is it my poll to launch?
I can launch it if you want. Here we go.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, everybody. Here we go. So poll up. Considering the future of AI and everything that's happening within this particular space, we're really curious, like for you, how much direct involvement with working with AI and AI agents and AI-oriented research, how much involvement are you kind of hoping to have? What do you really want? Do you want to be pretty much hands-off, like I really love it, I want to know how it works, but I kind of want everybody else to do it because I got other things? Or do you want all the way to the other end? You know, I want to be in there, touching it, breathing it, living it. I'm eager to figure out how to push my limits with those conversations. So where are you at on that spectrum, from not limited involvement to full involvement? So everybody should have that up on their screen. Go ahead and jump in and start answering, please. All right. Oh, this is lots of fascinating conversations.
I don't see anybody saying none.
Heads up, hint. Nobody. Yeah, I was going to say nobody can see the answers probably, but
sorry, I just
popped it up there. But
I just skewed the results. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
Biased it.
Biased it. All right, so a lot of people are in that high involvement area. That's the biggest. That's 57% at the moment. So we've got a pretty good distribution and kind of what we expect. It's kind of hard to come to an AI webinar discussion topic if you're not interested at all. But I love seeing the involvement, and I'm sitting at that area too. Just love this. I'm so fascinated by this space. All right, stop sharing and just pop the results on the screen real quick for you. There you can see how it distributes everybody. And then let's get going.
All right, good.
All right.
So
Dave, yeah,
why don't you take it away? Yeah, what we're going to be talking about today is, in this topic of having conversations with today, I'm going to really talk about what that means. And then I'm going to hand it off to Greg. Greg's going to go through a case study and just showing you a couple of different applications where agentic AI can change the game and is changing the game, and then we'll move into a panel discussion. We got a few questions that we have set up for our panelists. And then from that, we'll open the floor for anybody. And if you have questions or comments anywhere along the line, please post them, because we'll be watching that, and we may incorporate that into our when we get into the panel discussion. Okay. So with that, when we say a new era has begun, what do we mean that? Today we're at, I think, a historic crossroads where this cognitive revolution is transforming not just how we learn, how we work. And when we're talking about innovation and work streams for innovation, a lot of it is about, I believe, how we design products, not just design it from, a product development, design it from the marketing, design it from the branding, design it from all the different ways a brand has impact through products that come to market. So it's truly an opportunity to work differently. And so agents, this idea, this new time is a way to, I believe, first rapidly respond to consumer change because of all the information we have at our fingertips, and then to more effectively respond through behavioral design. And behavioral design, what that means is designing products with a behavior change for consumers to have in mind. So working backwards, what is the change that you're trying to impact that you need to define how success is? And then to have that, what are the different features and the steps to create that impact? And that's where the idea of behavioral frameworks come in place, to understand behavioral science and to incorporate that into this whole process. So, and to do this in a way that it ultimately achieves business impact. So if you're working for a manufacturer, a product, or a brand owner, in that way, you want to have ultimately some business. You want your product to be successful in market, and then you want people to buy it, to use it, or in perhaps in ways that go beyond just the economics and of getting higher sales volume as a success criteria. It may be solving problems that make lives better, create more healthier opportunities, more things and ways which add value to people's lives. So today we're just bombarded with so much data, and it's growing exponentially every day. So what do we do with this data? Which data is relevant to be incorporated? So given this sort of all of this voice of consumer data, a lot of it's unstructured, a lot of it is structured, but the unstructured component is where the AI revolution has been creating a lot of new opportunities. Agents are basically an embodiment of intelligence that can be something that you can collaborate with towards doing some function in your work stream. And so agents, how you train agents based on intelligence that you have available is the key to making successful sort of collaboration. So intelligence, that you can collaborate with. So one way that we have been working with is you start with a behavioral framework, behavioral science, and you can actually train, you can inform these agents about frameworks like this. And so they can ingest this information, and that's step one. Step two is to then think about the different types of data you have that may be relevant to building some consumer intelligence. And to do that, what we want to do is marry that information and basically map the information with the frameworks of behavioral science. So this step two, we do that, and we use that to inform these agents. That creates, helps us form consumer intelligence that can be utilized collaboratively. So this is what we mean by conversing with data. It goes beyond the now old way of doing things where you are looking at data and numbers and trying to apply classical, maybe statistics or other things to come up with some sort of results. But it's creating a new way to go beyond that, to actually converse with data in ways that we can truly fit with the way we think as human beings, in ways that different people on a collaborative team can understand the insights that come from data And so it's creating so many incredible ways. One way is to really rapidly sense consumer change by adding information, updating it, and creating agents that you can then engage with to collaborate to really discover that change. Another way we're seeing in the innovation process is behavioral design, ways to what sort of elements of a design, so you're designing a product, how do you build into those products ways that create behavioral consumer impact and or behavioral impacts. And the last, it's a way to simplify the complexity of what groups of people are doing, both in terms of looking at data, engaging with data, having conversations with data, but also aligning new product development functions so that you can simplify how groups of people work together towards business impact. So that's a lot, but it's a setting this, I thought it would be setting the tone for today's conversation and panel discussion. Okay, so any thoughts from the rest of you before we move into Greg's has a some more information and then a great case study. But any thoughts you guys have?
Yeah, so we actually have one jumped in. We have a question already in here that's really focused on this agent part and having the conversations there. And the question is, can we use agents to duplicate responses that we would receive from actual consumers so that we could use agents in lieu of them? Or are we not quite there yet? Like, where are we at in terms of that type of thinking?
Great question.
And John, maybe that's you work especially in that space.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, I'd like to clarify, the term agent, because we're using it a lot. And I think it's important to understand that at the end of the day, agent is really just a computer program. It's a small little computer program module, and it acts like a person in some situations. And so it has this name agent. But what's kind of funny about agents is they don't really have agency the way that people do. And what they really are like daisy chained together. A regular computer program has if then loops, it makes decisions. And what's special about, what makes agents feel different is they can accept different inputs. They can accept language as input. They can accept, visual like images as input. They can have images as output, right? There's more general input and output than we're used to for computer programs. And so you get what looks like intelligence, but you have to remember that agents, just earlier today, I was working with my assistant on a little app to put bounding boxes on screenshots for the user manuals for, the dashboards we make. Okay. And that's an agent. It's a bounding box making agent. Okay. But it's really not very smart. It acts smart when it's programmed correctly, but it's not actually smart. And so I think that you have to be very careful with the synthetic data, that you have to always ask yourself, where are these answers really coming from? And if you aren't able to trace back the answers that the agents are giving you to something that's grounded in data that you can verify, you should be very skeptical. Another thing I would say you should be skeptical about is if there's not some entry point for your expertise into what the agent is doing, then it's just a black box and someone from Silicon Valley has made it. It's like this magic machine. You should be very skeptical of those things. So I think that agents allow us to do a lot of new things, but at the same time, they aren't actually smart and it's not really magic. So you should be, proceed with caution. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would add that, you could take real consumer responses and use that informing, creating this intelligence. But that alone, it's the collaboration. It's a collaborative intelligence that really is the power of agents because it's using collaboration, human in the loop with this sort of computer program, as John put it, that has been informed. So it has access to a lot of content and access to find patterns in new ways. So that's, yeah. So anyway, should we move on?
Yeah, so let's move on.
Greg.
All right. So one of the things and why we've got, this particular team assembled today is, as Dave mentioned, the idea of being able to put a lot of information together into one space that we can have a fairly transformative thought process into how we do innovation. Innovation in companies is not a siloed event, right? Those companies that are trying to do it as siloed teams struggle greatly. What the hub allows people to do is really be able to leverage all the data across the entire organization, a lot of the times things that you're not even aware of, and to be able to inform the decisions so you can make innovations smarter, better, faster, look into possibilities, do creation smarter, better, faster. So basically sense what's happening in a very, very complex space and then respond to it. Why we think this is valuable is because a lot of times when we're thinking about just our own job functions, we forget maybe that there's this really critical piece of data over here that, and we often maybe don't even know, or it was so long ago that it happened that we don't really know if it's relevant anymore. Having this ability to pull from lots of different sources and put complexity into these agents is what allows us to have the ability to solve problems much more efficiently and better. And as John, like you were saying, these agents are little programs, but they can think faster than we can think, and across a larger range of complexity than we can think. So, and then as humans, we're biased, well, everybody's biased, even the agents are biased by their data, but we're often get so trained into what problem we're trying to solve, we forget about the rest of the world that is applicable. And the agents help us break up that challenge. So we built this system. Dave, you want to go to the next slide? So that it's think of it as a process where you can have all types of data coming in, right? You have to be able to trust your data. As John said, you've got to really know that data and understand it. So you could pull in super clean social listening data, you could bring in historical data, et cetera. But all that information needs to go through some sort of an organization cleaning process such that when you have a conversation with it, it knows how to respond. And there's lots of different ways to accomplish that task, but it's critical that you're using information that you know and trust. From there, then, it's a matter of building different types of workspaces based on what you're trying to accomplish. This could be co-creation spaces, product strategy spaces. Theus and what John's doing is a huge piece of being able to have spin up an agent that talks to other agents so that you can watch conversations happening and influence that conversation. Again, digging deep for lots of different applications, seeing patterns in data that you might not have seen before, getting to nuanced insights that maybe you, as a human, just reading through the transcripts can't get. So really allowing you to do a lot of different tasks. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then bringing that together into some sort of a conclusion, right? Writing reports, putting strategy plans together, doing brainstorming sessions, et cetera, and then using that information back into the start of the system so that you can constantly learn and grow. So that's the basic idea of the hub. And it's a little bit of a technical layout here, but I think it's important to see that these things really have a lot of complexity to them. Your business has a lot of complexity. Innovation is complex. So it's useful to have systems that try to simplify that and make it easy to innovate across the complexity.
Yep, very good.
All right. And then we've got a case study just to show a little bit about how this works. And we actually have a video. Instead of us just talking through it, we're going to play this little video again, another simple AI generated video.
Can you guys hear that as it started, or did I forget to check a box?
Yeah, I haven't heard it start yet.
Can you hear that?
No,
No, I don't hear either.
I
You might
did
need to
not
share.
hit. All right, let me reshare. I'm sorry about this, everyone. I'm going to pause.
Okay, so while you're doing that, Dave, as an interesting question, so can we untrain agents? We can train them. I think it's more about a focusing question, John. Or Anupam, do you have an thought on that
Untrain the
while Dave
agent?
gets?
I mean,
I'm
Yeah.
ready to go by the way, whenever you are. But
Oh, you're ready. Okay.
yeah,
no,
okay.
no, I mean, do you want to
Go ahead and
address?
answer. Yeah. Anupam or John, you
Yeah,
want to take that?
if I could start, and John, if you chime in. I mean, the word untrain, obviously there's two parts. So you trained it with some data. Depending on what data you used and how much training you did of an agent, uh, or of the underlying model, I should say, to which the agent responds, is the key, right? So if you used a lot of data, like all the large language models do, untraining that means undoing all of that in some way, which is almost like you just train a new model with
Yeah.
the new type of data that you would like. And then think of agent, as John was saying, just sort of an interface that understands not just programming, but all kinds of other input as well. So you're guiding the program as an agent, but the underneath thing is the model. So it's all about the data you use to train the model. If you want to use a different kind of data, I would say either fine tune or train a new model altogether.
I could add back in, I think it was 2000, Greg and I received a patent. And this was using being able to take models of data. So like these would be linear models in this set in this patent. And we took like partial least squares regression models and made them so they could evolve. So the parameters, as you add data or you take away data, the model evolves automatically. And so the point I'm trying to make is you may have a body of data that has been informed into the intelligence, but the models, you can actually take away or evolve these models so you can look at, let's say, a period of time that or data is representative. And so the answer is, in some ways, that's a way to get to you can have forgetting factors, so to speak, for the training, because part of the training, the informing, is the models and the model parameters and the predictions, rather than just the raw verbatims. So should we move forward?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Insights professional is at a historic crossroads where a cognitive revolution is transforming not just how we learn, but how we design products that truly change behavior. In this pilot study, we reimagined protein snacks for GLP-1 users, bridging the gap between consumer choice and behavioral design to create product experiences that build brand relationships. The first step is to carefully frame the space. The old adage, garbage in, garbage out, is an important one to remember. So, we ensure we are only working with authentic consumer commentary, not that of companies or marketers, but genuine stories connected to actual GLP-1 use. Then, we classify and categorize all information. Once the data is prepared, we explore the data for the most common topics being talked about, and the key elements we can identify that are driving behavior, such as moments, tensions, and emotions. Next, we use AI agents to simulate conversations with GLP-1 users. This allows us to distill knowledge and discover patterns, and learn in a way that we as humans are wired to learn, through conversation. This is an incredibly new and powerful way to work with qualitative content, because instead of trying to create synthetic data, we are actually digging into the real, honest, and raw content in a way that provides responses through a conversation that makes sense. From this, we started aggregating all our learnings. For instance, we theorized these 5 different types of snacking moments that GLP-1 users were commonly talking about. We also made lists, filling out all aspects of the types of data that we need to identify all the possible things likely to impact GLP-1 user behavior. If we want to design for behavior, we need to know what is impacting their behavior. The next step is to run surveys to quantify the information and determine what opportunities have enough potential to put time and money against. We also want to learn what aspirations exist and what the biggest unmet needs and tensions are for GLP-1 users. We surveyed users and revealed the biggest aspiration was for snacks with high protein, but the biggest gap was not labeling the products as being GLP-1 friendly. Our sensory analysis shows which flavors GLP-1 users already associate positively with on-the-go fuel moments. This insight helps us target product concepts, nudging behavior for those open to certain flavors and avoiding those likely to be rejected, based on specific percentages of users. For example, while honey is typically seen as positive, a large percent of GLP-1 users subconsciously avoid overly sweet flavors. This highlights the need for less sweet product profiles. With each step, we ingest the new information into the workspace, continually growing our base of consumer intelligence. Before we start ideating on new products, we document our behavioral strategy, cataloging all the elements that we have learned impact behavior in that moment. This ensures cross-functional teams are all working from the same knowledge base. The result is faster, more effective co-creation for the development of winning product concepts. This analysis provides the intelligence required for concepting, where our co-creation agents are not only informed on the body of consumer intelligence, but also able to apply creativity frameworks. For example, we can use Scamper to generate many variations of this example concept statement, ones that are both familiar and different using creative twists. These variants can then be screened using agent personas or modified by the co-creation team to speed up and amplify the collective creative capacity to generate and select concepts for direct consumer evaluations. The innovation team is now equipped to dive into development in record time.
All right. So hope that's something that everybody can get a sense for the opportunity, the power that agentic AI having conversations with data. Just to summarize, we are now working to use it in the upfront part of discovery of white spaces where people feel tensions and or have concerns or aspirations about something that they would like to have in their product experiences. And you think about GLP-1 for people in those situations, there's a lot of white spaces out there, a lot of behavioral white spaces. You could discover and validate what are the design elements, like sweetness. It's people are going to avoid certain types of things that typically most consumers would not. But since you're on GLP-1, things that are very overly sweet just are no longer of interest to you. And then you can then rapidly create these in concepts. You can create hundreds of concepts for co-creation teams to work on, and then create variations of that based on a select few. You can rapidly iterate in ways, you can test them with agents, all before you go back to consumers to validate and do final selection. So it's really fascinating co-creation opportunities there. And we're learning every day about new ways these agents can really impact cross-functional teams and people doing whatever role they have. So anyways, back to you, Greg.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I agree. I think that's it's really fascinating. And the one thing that I would say, I've been having a lot of conversations the last few days, and the one thing that probably gets pushed a lot is that agents right now are only qualitative. And as John mentioned, that's not true. They can ingest they can ingest pictures, give out pictures, et cetera, quant data, not quant data, et cetera, so forth. So don't handcuff yourself when you think about what's possible with AI at this point, because it's changing super, super fast. And if it's not available today, it might be available tomorrow. All right.
Greg,
First question for the team here. Dave, you want to flip?
Anupam, did you have a general statement you want to say?
I just wanted to build on what just Greg said, that
a
lot of the work that we do is actually about bridging that qualitative-quantitative gap, if you will. So it is making sense of this vast amount of information that used to be unstructured, is unstructured, has a lot of information in it, but we just didn't have the right tools before the models came along, the deep learning came along, and I teach natural language processing, and used to be 8, 10 years ago, we would use different types of machine learning algorithms, natural language processing toolkits, etc., to understand. You have to worry about grammar. I don't know how many of you recognize or remember when Google used to translate initially, it was all grammar based. And
Yeah.
when they changed to a deep learning transformer type of model based translation, it was just a step change in the quality of translate that you did on Google. So that's just an example of what suddenly became available that wasn't before.
Mm.
And so using those technologies to take this vast amount of unstructured information in any form, text, video, images, and convert it into things that we are used to dealing with. And I know many of you are scientists, PhDs, et cetera. You use all of these tools all the time. Now we are able to bridge that gap. And actually, that's one area where 113 focuses a lot of its work and time and modeling to actually take that data and convert it into something that's more structured that you could use your other tools with as well.
Great.
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. No, so should we go to the first question?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. All right. So first question, and Anupam, we'll start with you there as well. So you talked about being able to bridge that gap, right? And one of the questions we have is like there's lots of content within the social sphere out there, and that information is available. You name it, where it is, everything from business to marketing to consumer. What are some of the things that we do to create intelligence, i.e., things we can trust from that data?
Yeah, great question. And I'll give you a simple analogy. Those that process a lot of data probably already know this, and there's things in data science that I talk about. 80% of our work on any data science type of project is in data preparation. What does that mean? You start with the data, you clean the data, you understand it, you discover about, you do EDAs, you do ETLs, and then you extract features that are pertinent to whatever it is that you're trying to do with it, whether it's a classifying the data, regression analysis, or whatever else you want to do. So now in this new world where suddenly it's possible now, and we've been doing this for a decade, so we have had our hands dirty in this before large language models came along. But now all of this data that is in the social media or digital data, I would say not just social media, it could be more structured or like reviews, for example, that you see is also generally in that area. But now it's possible for us to mine that, analyze that, etc. So we spend a lot of time uh, creating these models that can take all of this information. And then, for example, we have a sensory model. And what is a sensory model? We can break sensory into components like taste, like flavor, like temperature, like mouthfeel, like body or volume or aroma or smell. All of these are different aspects that as a sensory scientist, you want to know about the product or the ingredients that you're talking about. So we can distill all of this vast amount of information into these dimensions, if you will, or outputs of our model. So our models are trained to do all of that. And then you can say these are the emergent sort of or core pieces from which you can derive any kind of intelligence. And the beauty is we have more than 5 of such models, and they're all interconnected. So now you know how sensory is connected, or the sensory experience is connected with the consumption or the moment of consumption. We call it a situation model, right? So situation model will answer things like what, when, with whom, what is it being paired with, how is it being used, what's the frequency of usage. All of those types of questions are now things that are pieces that are all connected together. And that becomes the foundation for intelligence, if you will.
Yeah. And excellent. I agree. Like it's that interconnected piece is a really important part of the social intelligence piece. And John, anything to add for this one?
Well, I think it goes back to what is artificial intelligence? Because the word intelligence is used a lot, and we don't always define it. And one definition from psychology is that intelligence is the ability to accomplish a complex goal. And so things that can do that, when you think about what are we trying to do when we have all the social media data, and we're trying, there's intelligence is involved in organizing the data, as Anupam said, and we can use the language models to help us with that. But then also we can use these, once we have the models that are trained, then we can use those models to accomplish complex goals. And so we have another form of social intelligence. So I think that you have goals that involve social activity and you want to accomplish them. And I think the models help us to do that. So that's why I think, artificial intelligence just means man-made. You have a machine that can accomplish a complex goal is artificially intelligent, and the social intelligence is a special case of that. So
yeah.
That's
You
know,
what I would contribute.
if I could
Well, that's
add
really
in,
good.
it's like the other piece to intelligence, and this goes to how you create these models. What, as Anupam, you were saying, the deciding what dimensions are pertinent to a question. And behavioral science is a framework, a lens to make that sort of decision. So if you're looking at the behavioral psychology of product experiences, it's not just about liking that drives behavior. We know that. We know liking actually usually is not the driver of behavior. It's a component. You need to have products that are acceptable to a certain level, but often it is the promise that drives behavior, but it's also the experience, the cues that signal a product implicitly that it is going to deliver some value, some benefits, and towards a reward that is rewarding for people, that's memorable, that has emotional impact. Now you're suddenly all these other dimensions that are pertinent to sensory. Same thing if you're looking at marketing, you got a whole group of different sort of elements that you can look into making claims, package design, from the marketing perspective, or for positioning products, and the imagery you use along with that, and then you got the brand equities and everything. All these things are part of this behavioral, we call it habit flywheel, or ways of this framework for understanding what drives people to change behaviors or to nudge them along so they continue their current behaviors. And that's the lens. And so combining that with, it's another intelligence, just how you design your research and how you do things. So
And I think that's why I like to summarize everything really simply, is the fact that the lens that you look through is critical. And that actually this brings us to our next question. If you want to move to the next one up, Dave.
Yep.
And that's really like how do you have these conversations with data? And John, you're like really leading the space in terms of what this really means. So how do they really help us? Oh, you're on mute, John.
Sorry. Better?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think when you think about, how do humans process information efficiently and how do we organize? I think stories and social interactions and language and images are all very important. And the language can be, read or it can be spoken. But I think these generative models kind of open all these doors where now you can have your data come to life. Where, with Entheus, what we do is we have different perspectives that represent the different, you can think of them as segments in your data. You've got different perspectives in your data that are anchored. And, a common question I get is, well, why wouldn't you just ask ChatGPT to simulate a focus group? And you can get something that looks like a focus group, but it really takes a lot of engineering to hold those perspectives fixed throughout the whole conversation and inform those perspectives by the data. And so I think you can get to a place where you're now really able to talk literally to your data. And not only that, your data can talk to itself. You can have different agents that are interacting with each other. And when we think about prompting, you have this enormous space of information, and you're trying to search through it to find interesting combinations, things that you already know, but you don't realize that this piece of information from this study plus this piece of information plus this piece of information, you bring it together, tells you something interesting. To Dave's point about what can drive behavior, gives a very efficient way to search through our data in a way that makes sense to humans, that uses what we're good at, the kind of social nature of humans, the story-driven nature of humans, the language-driven nature of humans. I think you can really make your data come to life. And I think that's totally new. I think that the generative AI just opens all these doors. And so now we can go way deeper into our data than we used to be able to.
Yeah, yeah. That to me, this is just a fascinating part because, and it gets a little bit in one of the comments that was made here, which is, would you, when you start to have these conversations, would it be better to like give it these agents summary information, like a set of insights reports, or is it better to give them just the raw information? Like, and it seems to me like, you want a little bit of both. I mean, you do want any bit of human conversation or intuition that has already been layered into this is a key piece of the conversation. For an agent or these models to be able to know this is the raw data and this is the patterns we found, what other patterns exist. That all of that is that back and forth iterative nature.
Yeah. Should we do the last question before we
let's
open it up?
Sure. All right. So how does this change, this new thinking that we've been talking about today, how does this really change the game for product innovators? If you're sitting in the product innovation seat, what's happening? What's happening to how you can innovate and what you'll be able to do? So Dave, you want to take that first?
Sure. Yeah. Greg, you mentioned simplification earlier. And if you could simplify not only how you have conversations with data through agentic AI, these informed to create this collaboration to learn in this way, that's a form of simplification because not everyone's going to be a data analyst. Not everyone's a data scientist. And you don't need to have the statistician in the meeting with you or someone generating a report with all these statistics. That's a slow process, So simplifying in this way, where if you're a package designer, you can interact and learn. If you're a sensory person, if you're a product developer, if you're a marketer, whatever your domain expertise, you can interact and learn. That's a form of simplification. The other type of simplification is about alignments. So when you have different departments, everybody, has cross-functional teams, but you may work together maybe at the front end innovation, but when you break apart to work on your specific pieces with whatever sort of processes you have in place, often at that point, the more siloed organizations are, sometimes the alignments break down. And we've seen time and time again, from our perspective as being on the consulting side, we've seen groups where that, sometimes things misalign. And when you get a misalignment, the consumer then, if the promise doesn't fit with the experience or doesn't fit with the brand, what the brand equities are, and so on, or how things are marketed and merchandised in the retail environment, whatever that is, these misalignments lead to failures, and also misalignments leads to what? Slowness. So when you are aligned, if you can simplify through this process, you get speed to market. And that's what we really need today. So anyway, it's all about simplification.
Excellent. Any builds on that, Anupam or John?
One thing I would just add to the point you made, Dave, is, and John, you said you could ask ChatGPT or any of the language models anything you want, and it'll give you an answer. and it'll seem very correct. It seem like, oh wow, because it's framed as you and I are trying, like it'll talk like an expert if you asked it to. Also talk like a child if you did that, but that's a different matter. But so now we all we've been trained in this new world to just believe it. It's
Mm,
so believable. It could be
Mhm.
the 100% opposite of an insight, but you would believe it
mm,
because the way it talks to you about it. So one of the things, John, you said that too, that it has to be grounded. So a lot of engineering that goes into both on our end and above in these agents talking to each other, how they're configured, how they're designed, is to get to the right data to be able to answer your questions. And we spend a ton of time on that, on our modeling, et cetera. A lot of the reasons why many of our clients, they all have the same platforms, they don't use social effectively for new product design or innovation is because they get lost. It's noisy. It has a ton of other places where you could just go down rabbit holes. We clean that all out, we make it available. So now the real intelligence, which might be a spark, or we call it an unarticulated need, might be just a few references that are buried somewhere, but they are in this context of a usage or consumption of a product or a behavior that if you didn't pay attention to, if you didn't even know that it's not noise, you might ignore it, number one. Number
mm.
two,
Right.
if you're asking a chat GPT type of stuff, the stuff you're going to get is the stuff that's most commonly known anyway. So
Mm,
that doesn't give you the insights. It doesn't give you the context and the connections that you're looking for to innovate in new areas. So we call those
right.
unarticulated needs. And if you
I
can
like that.
spot those, uh,
Great.
you're more
Yep.
likely to succeed.
Yeah, that's great.
Shall we open up the floor here?
Yeah,
Can I
let's
can I
open
just
up the
add one?
floor.
Can
And
I add
oh,
one
go
thing
ahead,
very
John.
quickly? I just want to
Okay.
say
Yeah. I'm
to build
sorry. Yeah.
to
Go
build on what
ahead.
Dave
Yeah.
said, and actually what Anupam was just discussing. I think accessibility is part of this too. It's not just simplification. It's
Ah,
about making things accessible that you can have, give everyone a common language where
Mm,
people can come together, and the information is now the totality of information is accessible to everyone. And I think that really is a game changer. Okay, that's what I have
yeah,
to say.
yeah,
it's
I
a
agree.
great,
I
great
agree.
ad.
Well, I'm gonna build on that, John, with the first question from the audience, which is how long does it take to build up this capability to modify, specify these tools for, a specific use case or consumer group? It's kind of a trick
Well,
question.
it depends how much information you're starting with, for one thing, and
Yeah.
what state the information are in. That where we are with Theus right now is trying to really figure out what are the ideal inputs. And this gets back to Anupam talking about the data engineering side of what we have to do. That language models naturally run on language, so open-ended questions, so that sort of thing will feed it naturally. Reports. Now, the thing about reports is they're nice because models can look at reports, they can look at charts, they can read reports, but you always have the risk that information has been um, information has been in some way compressed out in the making of that report. The bias of whoever made the report, is present, and you've lost information when you went from the original data down to the report. And so where we are is looking at, the raw data, of course, making it very hard for a model to understand. You've got rows of, sensory evaluation data, product code this, and, attribute code that. It's hard to make sense of it. And so we're trying to find that sweet spot where what level of processing of the data takes us to the kind of clear atomic pieces of information that we want to put into the model that we can kind of build our insights from. And you can take a report and try to disassemble it, and that's good. But you have to also ask yourself, have you lost information? By the time you get that report, has the information been averaged out and it's just gone? And you actually, if you could have gone upstream, there would have been some insights in it. So I think it's a bit of an experimental question right now. That's why it's a great time, the best time ever to be a consumer researcher.
Yeah,
Because
and it's a fantastic question to be asking. I think it's actually something that for my own personal path, if you will, through this is actually one of the questions that I put on my checklist as I'm saying, I'm looking at a problem and I'm saying, okay, could I use AI to help me solve this in any way, shape, or form? How could I use this data, et cetera? And each of these pieces, then some problems are like, wow, this is going to be super, super fast. I can do this in
Yeah.
10 minutes. I was at your webinar, yesterday, John, and yeah, I mean, you showed some examples where your data, you got it already pretty well oiled. You pop it in there, you're good to go. It sets it up super fast. But there's other cases where you still have to figure out what's what. And in those cases, yeah, it takes a good researcher to go through the information and make good sense of it first. And then, so more complex the task and the more unknown the data, the longer it's going to take. The more you really well have a good grasp of all the information that you're going to point it to, the faster it goes.
I gotta say something, because this is really such an important question. Is that there's a setup process, okay? And we have, with the hub right now, and working in collaborative with 113, we've got a set of data, verbatims and models that's available. Okay. Now, in that data, there's a lot of content and there's a lot of information that's applicable for a lot of companies that are interested in some insights from social listening, from the social intelligence, as we call it, with behavioral science models to really be able to inform and have dialogues. And that's available very quickly for specific types of projects. However, you can add in, you ingest other data files that of information you already have, or we can do research from with people, and then ingest that's more specific to your needs and ingest that to form. So that will take a little more time than out of the box. But once you have things set up, things go very fast in terms of utilizing these capabilities, these agents, to make decisions much faster than classical marketing research, consumer insights, centering consumer insights ways. I find it hard to believe that this is going to completely replace certain types of touch points with real consumers. Okay, you still need a valet. Where this has the greatest applicability today, I think, is two things. One is where things are, you're trying directional reads on things, and where it's really about sensing something from a lot of noise, and if you have really consequential decisions to be made, that's going to take more real information with consumers and longer time periods. But it's the setup process for purposes that it's really valuable now.
Yeah, and that's to answer one other question. There, like, where's those sources of data come from? How do you get that set up? And it literally, you can pull it from anywhere. Like, that's the beauty of systems like this, is that they're if you have an area that you're focused on all the time, if you have a category or a market or a product space, then you're going to want to put a lot of work into setting up that to really read and monitor that space. Like Anupam, you guys do a lot of that, where you constantly refresh it with social information. But it's also, you can drop your own learnings into that space too. So it's really the world. This isn't a fixed world, right? You got to think of it as always nimble, always agile. And I've always liked John's comment to me, which is you can turn up the focus on one area of the data or other area of data. I mean, if that's the control, like you were saying at the beginning, John, you need to be able to put some leverage and some control over what you're studying.
Right.
Yeah. Once you decide that, like, just to build on that, on social end, it doesn't take us a long time. It's a matter of days to run our models and get you the outputs, etc., that you can then do all the analysis on. But you're right. Sometimes we end up doing 2 or 3 different types of data gatherings because the questions you want to ask changed, or you didn't think about the right questions, and then we would have to augment it with more data.
So we're kind of running out of time here.
Yeah, we are we are at time.
And there's a lot of other questions.
Asks. We'll drop some emails into you guys with all these great asks as well. But if you're interested in doing something like a pilot project, working with the hub, it's in its early stages right now. So we very much want to have deep conversations with people to see where it's going to grow and how it's going to build into different types of organizations, et cetera, so forth. So if you want to do that, drop the word pilot in either via email or via the chat here, and we'll get back to you. And also, I mentioned John's class. John, you want to
My
throw
QR
a
code
word
up there.
out?
Yeah. So I've been teaching a webinar last couple of weeks. We have one more round of it. It's each week it's the same content, but it changes from week to week because it's live. It's an AI masterclass. It's on how to orchestrate these different AI tools together. And as Greg mentioned, it's an imaginary scenario where you have three hours to get together a report based on what you know historically, and also some analysis of publicly available information. So if you're interested in that, it's masterclass, just agora.ai/masterclass, or you can click on this QR code, take you there. I'm also going to put my contact information into chat in case anybody wants to connect. So I'll just drop this in. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wow. Really exciting. Great conversation.
Yeah. We could have done another hour.
Absolutely.
It would have been easy.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, this is always a challenge when we get very fun conversation under our belts here.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you
Awesome.
very much, everybody. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, John. Anupam, absolutely a pleasure. And let's do this again.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
for sure.
We'll
Bye,
do.
everybody. Thanks.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.